Breaking news today. The peace plan between Nigeria and Russian-Ukrainian Africa. In an effort to mediate peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa recently announced that his country would be leading a peace mission to the region. He listed Egypt, Senegal, Zambia, the Congo, and Uganda as the other members of the six-nation peace team. Despite the distance between the two countries, any progress toward ending the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is welcome. This is because the conflict has posed a serious threat to global food security, energy supply, and trade in vital mineral resources and fertilizer. The belief of the two warring parties that they could win the war, as well as the conflicting interests of the great powers supporting, opposing, or claiming to be neutral in the conflict, have hampered peace efforts despite moves for peace by China, Turkey, the Vatican, and France. The Peace Initiative Africana was reportedly started by the Brazzaville Foundation, a London-based nonprofit that works to peacefully resolve conflicts. The South African president hinted that the African Union and UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres were both involved in the mission. This was said while Lee Hsien Loong, the Prime Minister of Singapore, was in South Africa. He added, "We spoke to Presidents Putin and Zelensky who agreed that they would be willing to receive a mission of African heads of state in both their capitals, Moscow and Kyiv." Equally upbeat is international negotiator Jean-Yves Oliver, who has been involved in the peace process for the past 6 months or so. Indeed, this peace initiative is being welcomed with caution, and, in some quarters, skepticism. The African initiative will have zero effect in Ukraine, says expert on diplomacy Stephen Chan. The delegation will be greeted with protocol and politeness by both Putin and Zelensky. Some Nigerians, caught between optimism and skepticism, have been fretting over the geopolitical factors that may have led to their country's exclusion from the peace team. Without success, some inquisitive journalists have reached out to government officials to learn why Nigeria isn't included. This supports the idea that the process of making decisions regarding foreign policy is often shrouded in secrecy for a time. Regardless of whether the president consulted the Executive Council or a think tank before making this decision, under Nigeria's presidential system of government, the buck stops with him. Critics of Buhari's foreign policy see this as a lack of action and a deficit, but as of this writing, government officials have kept silent on the issue. Furthermore, Buhari's presidency did not issue any official statement on the matter before his tenure expired on May 29. "It's time for me to go on an adventure." You may recall that the United Nations General Assembly held a debate on the Russian-Ukrainian conflict and ultimately decided that Russia's actions were an unacceptable act of aggression. Since this was the case, the majority of the Assembly went on to pass a resolution condemning Russia. It should be borne in mind that Nigeria was also counted among the countries that voted in favor of the resolution. The Nigerian government later claimed it would be neutral, but this stance seems to be contradictory. However, the results of the vote reveal much about the country's priorities. Having taken a side in the conflict already, Nigeria may have felt it was not qualified to act as a mediator. 2. It's possible that South Africa has been working with the peace initiative's creator from the beginning. Perhaps at some point in time, an invitation was extended to Nigeria. But a sense of superiority could make the Nigerian government reluctant to work with South Africa. Third, and related to this, Nigeria may have interpreted the peace project as an attempt to improve South Africa's standing in the international community. So, South Africa's status as the self-proclaimed giant of Africa may cast a pall of unease over Nigeria. The argument that South Africa, with its diminishing global profile, cannot silence the gun and cast Europe, is made by some observers of world events. Indeed, every nation consistently works to enhance its international standing. The same holds true for Nigeria and South Africa. The United States and Great Britain, in particular, are convinced that Russia has committed an injustice and must, therefore, be defeated, and Nigeria may not want to alienate these allies. The conflict may seem far away to the government of Nigeria under Buhari, and the discriminatory treatment of Africans by Europeans during their evacuation from Ukraine at the start of the conflict may have also played a role. We can't say for sure that an invitation wasn't extended to Nigeria for reasons only the organizer knows. The next obvious question is whether or not Nigeria's reputation as a continental leader has been harmed. It would appear not. Of course, every step a country takes abroad must, ultimately, be in its own best interest. The current administration believes that the United States will not be hurting its interests by staying out of this initiative in faraway Europe. 2. It's better for Nigeria to keep its pride if the initiative has given the impression that it's taking a backseat to South Africa. And third, Nigeria has a proven track record of contributing to international peace efforts. It has also worked in tandem with other African countries when necessary to propel continental progress. During Obasanjo's tenure as democratically elected president, Nigeria spearheaded the New Partnership for Africa's Development (NEPAD) initiative in conjunction with Algeria and South Africa. Its refusal to join this African peacemaking effort in a very complex conflict, whether out of principle or for the reasons given above, does not diminish its standing or importance in the continent. Nigeria is still the continent's most populous nation, has the continent's highest nominal GDP, is ranked among Africa's top 5 superpowers by the Global Firepower Index, and is slowly but proudly consolidating its democracy. President Bola Tinubu was sworn into office on May 29 in the presence of many foreign dignitaries and heads of state from across Africa. There was a global outpouring of goodwill. After the event, many of them held individual meetings with the new president. This not only demonstrates their regard for Nigeria, but also their acceptance of its manifest destiny as a leading power on the African continent. The new president recognized this when he pledged his support for the causes of Africa and West Africa specifically in his inaugural address.